close your eyes for a moment. Picture yourself on a Cornish beach. The sun is warm, the tide is gentle, and the laughter of families fills the air. It feels safe, idyllic. And then chaos. From nowhere, a black inflatable speedboat roars out of the surf, engines screaming as men leap into the shallows, dragging heavy duffel bags onto the sand. Families freeze in shock. Some reach for their phones. Children cry as parents scramble to pull them close. And seconds later, Border Force officers storm in behind them. This isn't a film. It isn't Netflix. It's real. And it happened in broad daylight right here in Cornwall. In 2024, this seaside county became the stage for a breathtaking 28-mile cocaine chase. A smuggling plot so bold that it collided head-on with unsuspecting holidaymakers. This is the story of how international cartel tactics reached Britain's quiet shores, how fishermen, once honoured by royalty, ended up leading a drug run, and how the National Crime Agency brought it all crashing down. Cornwall has always had smuggling in its blood. If you think of smugglers as shadowy figures in balaclavas, think again. In the 1700s and 1800s, entire Cornish villages lived off contraband. Take John Carter, the so-called King of Prussia. From Prussia Cove, he and his brothers ran a smuggling empire so powerful that even naval patrols were said to avoid them. His operations weren't a few barrels of rum hidden under nets. We're talking shiploads of gin, brandy and tobacco, all hauled ashore by candlelight and stored in cliffside caves. Villages joined in, farmers lent their horses, women stood lookout, and even vicars were rumoured to bless smuggled goods before they were moved inland. Church bells rang if revenue men were spotted, and lanterns on cliff tops guided ships safely into shore. By the early 19th century, smuggling accounted for half of all spirits, a third of all tea consumed in Britain. That's how embedded it was. Fast forward a century, and Cornwall's reputation hadn't vanished. In the 1970s and 80s, cannabis and tobacco slipped into coves under moonlight. In the 1990s, heroin came ashore hidden on fishing boats. Cornwall's rugged coastline, riddled with hidden coves and narrow lanes, has always been an accomplice. So when holidaymakers at Gwynder Beach saw smugglers sprinting across the sand in 2024, history wasn't repeating itself. It was evolving. The contraband wasn't barrels of brandy this time. It was cocaine. Millions of pounds worth. At the centre of this plot was Peter Williams, 44-year-old fisherman from Havant, Hampshire. On paper, Williams wasn't a criminal. He was respected. A family man. He'd even shaken King Charles's hand as part of his work with Fishing into the Future, a charity created to protect Britain's fishing heritage. But beneath that respectable exterior was tragedy. Williams's father had drowned at sea. His own boat had been wrecked in a storm. Brexit squeezed his quotas. COVID shut down his markets. Rising fuel costs gutted what little income he had left. He spiralled into debt, battled addiction, and watched the industry he loved crumble around him. By 2024, Williams wasn't just struggling. He was desperate. And desperate men are valuable to criminals. To the wrong people, Williams was perfect. Skilled at sea, respected locally, but vulnerable and easy to manipulate. CCTV later caught him at Emsworth Harbour, meeting with men who weren't fishermen. To him, it may have felt like opportunity. To investigators, it looked like the beginning of recruitment. And he wasn't alone. Scott Johnston, 38, became Williams's crewmate on the doomed run. A father of two, neighbours described him as quiet and hard-working. No major convictions to his name. But he was there, in the boat. Then there was Edwin Yaha Tabora Baca, 33, a Honduran national living in Barcelona. When caught, he insisted he was just a tourist on a fishing trip. But encrypted messages told another story. He wasn't there to sightsee. He was cartel security. Bobby Pierce, just 29, never even stepped onto the rib. He was waiting inland to receive the cargo. And then came the Essex connection, Michael May, 47, and Terry Willis, 44. These weren't seafarers. They were the logistics men. Their job was to funnel the cocaine inland into the UK market. May was a freight worker. Willis had ties to lower-level drug distribution. Together, they stood ready in a van to take delivery of millions of pounds of cocaine. But perhaps the boldest of them all was Alex Fowley, 35. He bought the £70,000 rib outright. And while the plot unfolded, he was posting selfies in Newquay, playing the part of a carefree holidaymaker. Investigators later discovered he'd already lined up another shipment just 3 days after the first. Ordinary men. No notorious gangland reputations. Not career criminals. Just opportunists. And in chasing one big payday, they destroyed their lives. The gang thought they were invisible. They weren't. By early September 2024, the National Crime Agency had eyes on them. Operation Library was born. Williams' meetings were caught on harbour CCTV. Encrypted phones pinged off cell towers. Vehicles linked to Essex gangs were tracked across counties. Even Spanish numbers tied back to Barcelona lit up the intelligence radar. This wasn't just a British effort. In Lisbon, the Maritime Analysis and Operations Centre was monitoring cocaine shipments across the Atlantic. They passed intelligence to London. A mothership was in the area. The plan was textbook narco-trafficking. A large vessel sails from South America. Off Europe, it drops bales of cocaine into the ocean. Each bale is vacuum sealed, waterproofed, and fitted with GPS trackers. Smaller boats, fast, agile, disposable, swoop in, scoop them up, and sprint for shore. It's fast. It avoids customs, and it's hard to catch, unless you already know it's coming. On the night of 13 September 2024, Border Force cutter HMC Valiant was on patrol. When radar picked up a suspicious rib, officers moved in. The smugglers hit the throttle. The rib leapt forward like a bullet, its twin outboard engines screaming as the hull slammed against the waves. Spray exploded into the air, drenching the men as they clung to the sides, white-knuckled and wide-eyed. Behind them, on the horizon, the silhouette of HMC Valiant grew larger. The Border Force cutter cut through the sea with relentless precision, its bow rising and falling as it carved a straight line toward the fleeing boat. Officers on deck gripped railings, eyes fixed on the chase, radios cracking with orders. For 28 miles, it became a battle of speed, nerve, and endurance. The smugglers zigzagged violently, trying to shake pursuit. Every sharp turn sent spray cascading like shards of glass, the boat skidding dangerously close to flipping. The duffel bags, heavy with cocaine, slammed against the deck with each impact, threatening to burst open and spill their illicit cargo into the sea. On board, panic spread. Scott Johnston clutched his phone, screaming updates to organiser Terry Willis back on land. His words were lost in the roar of engines and crashing waves, but the desperation was clear. Seconds later, he hurled the phone into the ocean, the last link between sea and shore sinking beneath the waves. But the cutter didn't relent. From the bridge of the Valiant, officers watched the rib thrash through the water like a wounded animal. With every mile, they closed the gap. The smugglers could feel it. Engines howled, throttles pushed to breaking point, but the distance kept shrinking. Imagine the adrenaline in those moments. One boat carrying millions in cocaine, the other carrying the full weight of the British law. Out at sea, there was no place to hide. Only speed, courage, and the hope that the coastline could offer escape. Then Williams made his choice. Instead of running further out to sea, he turned toward land. The bow of the rib swung sharply, spraying a wall of seawater, and pointed directly at the Cornish coast. The smugglers were betting everything on a desperate move, a beach landing. The rib tore through the surf like a predator closing in on its prey. Ahead, the pale sweep of Gwynfor Beach grew larger with every second. From the deck, Williams could already see colourful parasols, sand castles, and children splashing at the shoreline, completely unaware of the chaos about to crash into their afternoon. The smugglers clung to the duffel bags, salt spray stinging their eyes, adrenaline burning through their veins. Behind them, the Border Force cutter bore down, its sirens wailing across the waves. The distance was shrinking fast. If they didn't make it to shore now, they never would. Then, with a bone-shaking thud, the ribs slammed into the sand. The force threw men forward, bags spilling into the shallows as seawater surged around them. Holidaymakers froze. For a split second the beach was silent. Confused parents staring, children pointing, phones being raised instinctively. Then the shouting began. Smugglers vaulted from the boat, boots splashing in the surf, hauling duffel bags heavy with cocaine. They stumbled across the sand, wild-eyed, desperate, adrenaline and panic dripping from every movement. "Run," one yelled, as though escape across a crowded beach was possible. But the families weren't the only ones watching. Seconds later, Border Force officers stormed in behind them. The sound of boots pounding, radios crackling, and weapons drawn shattered the holiday calm. Parents screamed, pulling children behind them as uniformed officers surged forward. Tourists scrambled backwards, some screaming, others filming in stunned disbelief. Williams hit the sand hard as he was tackled from behind, his face pressed into the grit, hands wrenched behind his back. Johnston was dragged down next to him, thrashing in the surf. Backer was surrounded, cuffed in seconds. The cocaine, millions of pounds worth, lay abandoned on the sand, seawater lapping at the bags like the ocean itself was trying to drag them back. For those on the beach, it was like watching a crime drama explode in real time. For the smugglers, it was the end of the line. At NCA headquarters, the case came together like pieces of a puzzle. Encrypted chats tied the men to Spain and Essex. GPS trackers confirmed the bail drop. CCTV showed Williams at Emsworth Harbour. Social media posts put Fowley in Cornwall. Phone forensics proved Johnston had called Willis mid-chase. And the van was parked, waiting, ready for millions in cocaine that never came. In total, 11 bales had been dropped to sea, 6 were recovered, 230 kilograms valued at £18.4 million, but 5 vanished. Never found. Think about that. Somewhere out there, 5 bales of cocaine, each worth millions, either sank or slipped into the wrong hands. The trial began in August 2025 at Truro Crown Court. Prosecutors laid it out piece by piece. The at-sea drop, the 28-mile chase, the beach arrests, the digital trail. 5 men pleaded guilty. Johnston and May chose to fight. They lost. The judge's words were scathing. This was a serious, organised, international conspiracy. You treated Cornwall's coast as your cocaine highway. You endangered families and children in broad daylight. The sentences were brutal. Peter Williams, 16 years, 9 months. Scott Johnston, 24 years. Edwin Yahir Tabora Backer, 17 years, 7 months. Bobby Pierce, 15 years, 4 months. Michael May, 19 years. Terry Willis, 21 years, 8 months. And Alex Fowley, his sentencing is still to come. Court reporters described the silence in the room. Families wept quietly. Defence lawyers pleaded for leniency. Williams was an addict. Johnston, a father. Baker misled into taking part. But the jury was unmoved. The verdicts were decisive. Do you think those sentences were fair? Or should they have been even harsher? So the next time you're on a Cornish beach, watching the waves roll in, remember this. Those same waters once carried a cocaine chase so extraordinary that, if you saw it in a film, you'd call it unbelievable. But it was real. This was the story of the £18 million cocaine boat chase. If you've watched this far, you clearly love true crime. What case should we cover next? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching.